Welcome to episode 2 of the MyoBrain podcast. As you can see, I have one of my athletes here, Katie Trombetta. We don't have too much structure to this. We're going to just kind of get into the thick of things with getting to know Katie, some of the tips and tricks she has with being a CrossFit athlete. Like I mentioned in the introduction to this, she is a very high-level CrossFit athlete. I've been working with her for 2 to 3 years now. So Katie, maybe give me a quick background on sort of how you got into the sport of CrossFit and how we started working together, I think in 2017, right?
Yes. Thank you for having me today. Before CrossFit, I don't have really much of an athletic background except for some softball. Growing up, I'm not one of those people who got hit in the face with my natural athletic ability and was like, oh, cool, I'll just do CrossFit. And,
Right.
go to the games my first year of doing it. So, it's been a really long road. I started in January of 2013 after being in college and gaining the freshman, sophomore, junior 50. And then, CrossFit gym opened up like a block away from my house, and I went and did baseline and had Fran cough for like 3 days. And then made my way back there when I got a big kid job and could afford an actual gym membership.
Yeah.
And just kind of worked my way up from there. So it's been a long road, but I actually am part owner of the gym that I started at now. So it's kind of a cool progression.
For sure. Yeah. I think that's a lot of people's stories too, especially people at maybe your level that did a sport, stopped doing that sport in college and then needed sort of an outlet for it. Obviously softball's not super transferable as much as like weightlifting would be or gymnastics. At least at the games are not having you hit a ball, but if there is, you may be at a little bit of advantage one day.
I'm all for bringing back the softball throw.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was like one of the it's pre-me, but I've heard of that thing. I'm sure that was not a pretty sight. You are exceptionally strong, and I have noticed, I think even before I started working with you, I like YouTubed your name, and you had just some like really odd strength things on YouTube, like 20 rep maxes on the back squats and like several
and lunges. I did a 20 rep max on lunges.
Yes, and several videos too, like not just one attempt. You like every 3 or 4 months you had like a 15 to 20 rep max back squat. So was that something you did? Was squatting something you did a lot like in high school, college to train for your sport?
I don't, yes and no. Like I never really focused on it. I guess I was a catcher my whole life playing softball, so I know that just literally thousands of reps of squatting up and down, like that's just gonna build some muscles in there. But
Right.
I think it was like my freshman year of high school. I got like the school squat record in athletic PE, and it was like 245. So as a 14-year-old, I was squatting 245.
Damn.
With like literally no form.
Right.
Like,
Spinning your knees.
who knows what it looked like? But yeah, that was. I mean, I don't know. I've always loved squatting. So as far as like that transferring from softball over to CrossFit, like that's about all I got. So
Right.
I think I just took that, especially when I first started CrossFit, like, oh, I'm really good at this. I want to do it all the time. So now I squat like, I mean, I've talked to you about it before, but I squat like maybe once a month now.
Yeah.
And I Olympic lift like maybe once or twice a week. So definitely held back on the strength stuff
Right.
in recent times and working on other stuff.
Yeah. It's certainly an evolution of being good at things where you no longer get to do them. I'm sure it's also nice to throw yourself a bone because no one likes to just get their ass kicked 7 days a week in training. It doesn't really motivate you to keep going. So we mentioned started working together in 2017. And again, I do remember like sending you a message and being like, hey, saw you qualify for regionals, yada, yada, yada. We worked together for that regional, and then you got 6th place. This is, again, regionals is no longer here, but essentially it was like top 40 people in these 2 regions. They combined there, and then the top 5 from that competition went to the CrossFit Games. That used to be the only way to qualify for the CrossFit Games. You got 6th in that regional, and it was a pretty, you could say objectively the toughest regional, I think, for women in the world. That was the year Sarah, Sigmund's daughter, moved to Tennessee. Christy Aramo, Brooke Wells, Jessica Griffith,
Stacy Tovar.
Yeah, her last year too. So it was definitely a whole bunch of studs there. I think we both knew going in there's probably only like one or two spots open, unless those few girls made some big mistakes. So that was your also first year at regionals, individual or team.
Right.
So I think that was a as good as experience as you can get without actually qualifying, right? But then I think you had some shoulder issues leading into that. You weren't 100%, and then, from my memory, maybe you trained for a month or two afterwards, and it wasn't really getting better, and you decided to have an actual surgery on that. Then you missed the entire 2018 season. So now you're doing the Open. You just did Wadapalooza and all that. So my question for you is: obviously, you went through a major injury, not just like I gotta take a week off from squatting, but something where you
Right.
missed an entire season, and also right after the peak of your so far it was the peak of your CrossFit career, one spot away, then you have to
Right.
take a year off. So what was that process really mentally for you, and any tips or advice you would have for people that have had, or in the future if they have a major injury like that, how to deal with it, really psychologically?
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a hard transition going from like peaking at regionals basically to, a month out from regionals. Like I remember I couldn't shut my car door with my left arm. So it was a huge kind of like wake up call of kind of basing your entire identity on this success as an athlete and then like not being able to function just kind of in everyday life. So I mean, I think my biggest piece of advice is to like start out is just not to ignore little problems that you think like will just go away. I'm really lucky to have a chiropractor at our gym that I've worked with since I started CrossFit. So he was the first person that I saw and was the one who was like, yeah, you should probably go see an orthopedic surgeon. So don't ignore your problems, little problems, because they definitely turn into big problems if you don't handle them. And I, like you said, I had shoulder issues going into regionals. I didn't know what they were. I ended up getting a cortisone shot at one point and like did a Tough Mudder and
All
felt
right, yeah.
great for like 2 weeks. And then, it just continued to get worse. So don't ignore things that like, listen to your body. If you think that something is an issue, it probably is. So you at least need to take some time off or get it taken care of and looked at. As far as coming back after surgery, I mean, like I said, going from being, one of the top 40 athletes in the world to like not being able to change my own shirt or like take a
Yeah.
shower by myself was, I mean, the mental side of it was way harder than any of the physical stuff. Obviously, like the pain is rough because you have trouble sleeping and then like going through physical therapy. I tore my rotator cuff. I don't know if we said that,
Right.
but, fully tore my rotator cuff and had to have that like reattached. So like the pain side of it is something that I think anyone who does CrossFit like can kind of handle. Just like in our workouts, like if we know it's painful, but we know at the end that there's a reward. So it was kind of the same mentality getting
Yeah.
through like physical therapy and healing physically from surgery. The mental side of it was even harder, in the couple months after I had surgery. Like I bought out two of the owners at my gym. Like we changed the name of our gym. We dropped our CrossFit affiliate. So there's a lot of things going on at once. So I think I changed a lot from that experience of having to go through all that while also kind of building back up as an athlete. So it's cheesy to say, but like your struggles make you stronger. I think like knowing the whole time, like if I just keep working, like eventually I'm going to get back to where I was and even better than I was. It's like that light at the end of the tunnel helps you get through like the hardest, darkest parts of any situation. So just being positive and surrounding yourself with people that, support you and want to see you accomplish your goal in the end. I didn't have people that were like, oh, you got hurt, you should probably stop CrossFit.
Right, right.
Like I didn't have anyone like that. It was all people who were super supportive. My physical therapist telling me to like stop taking my sling off to do CrossFit workouts. But other than that, like people that were really super supportive.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of have two things to add to that. The first thing you mentioned about like nagging things, I think almost any CrossFit competitor can relate to that, right? If you've done CrossFit competitively for longer than a year, it's very
Mm-hmm.
unlikely you've not had like some sort of small knee, shoulder, back thing. Probably almost impossible, right?
Right.
Just the level of volume, the intensity you're doing, it's bound to occur, and it's a very fine line between okay, my shoulder's kind of achy, but I still can do these muscle ups. And
Yeah.
okay, it hurts so bad that I really can't even like get my technique correct, right? I think a lot of
Right.
athletes do have a hard time riding that line, like not feeling like a loser by like just the second something hurts backing down, but over time it can really
Yeah.
build up, right? I'm doing a competition, really like my first big competition in CrossFit in like mid-May, and I've kind of decided I'm someone that's a lot of like upper body mobility issues, and I've like stretched sometimes. I've worked with the coach to try to improve it, and it's like gradually improving, but still like the idea of me doing like a 50-pound dumbbell overhead squat with good technique is just like
Yeah.
seems light years away. So I really dedicated. I told myself when I qualify for this competition, I'm gonna do like 2 months of at least one time a week, like dedicated recovery stuff. So like cupping, acupuncture, massage therapy, things like that I've never really I've never really worked with in the past. A little bit because like it gets expensive, and also because I didn't know really the efficacy of it. But I thought to
Right.
myself, if I'm obviously working with a whole bunch of athletes and they trust my opinion on some of these things, it'd be nice to have a legit like small sample size for myself on how
Mm-hmm.
beneficial that is, right? So obviously if you
Right.
can afford some of that preventative stuff treatment, I think that's huge. If you have like some, like I have this front delt sort of pain that's on and off, it's probably some overuse things, and like I get it like cupped and massaged, and I feel dramatically better for a couple of
Yeah.
days afterwards, right?
Right.
And then I think I lost the second thing I was going to mention there, but oh, and then corresponding with you after your injury, I think something else is important for people to realize that everyone has their timetable where it's like, I think even in your head, you're going to be back for the open.
4 months. Here we
Yeah,
go.
yeah. Everyone has like,
Yeah.
okay, I had surgery here. My surgeon told me I should be ready to go by this date. And
Yeah.
if you're a CrossFitter, you're probably someone that's actually like, oh, that's for the average person. It's 6 months.
Right.
I'm going to be 3 months. But even if it is, they tell you 6 months,
Yeah.
and you have the expectation at 6 months you're going to be able to do strict handstand push-ups again. And I think another challenge for
Yeah.
anybody mentally is that if it instead is 7, 8, 9 months to your 100%, sticking with it and not being like overly
Yeah.
aggressive.
Be patient. Yeah. My surgeon told me 6 months and I'd be able to. Now, coming from someone who like he's a great surgeon. He's like the shoulder guy for the Cardinals. Like he knows what he's doing
Right.
absolutely. But like he told me I was going to be able to be back to doing all the things that I was doing before surgery at 6 months. And I competed at HOA exactly a year to the day after surgery, and I was 100% in that I was all the way healed. But like as far as strength goes and just being at the same level of fitness and competition, like a year post-op, I still wasn't
Right.
back there. Even now, it's like there are times when I'm like, am I back to where I was
Yeah.
before? Like it doesn't hurt, which is good. But as far as like strength and fitness, like you just have to be patient. It's just an ongoing battle. And trying not to get hurt again is also an ongoing
Right.
battle. So.
Yeah, there's certainly a difference between being back so you can train and
Right.
being back to where you were pre-injury. Those things are
Yep.
very, very big difference. Like maybe you could snatch 6 months later, but your PR snatch is like 210, 220, whatever. Like you definitely weren't touching those numbers 6 months
Yeah,
after.
it was like snatching a PVC pipe at 6 months,
Right,
not
right. Yeah.
actually
Cleared to
snatching
move, not cleared to compete at the
Yes.
CrossFit Games.
Right.
Cool. So something else we wanted to touch upon was, you've done CrossFit for 5-ish years now. I'm sure not all of that was competitive, but still been in the gym doing burpees
Yeah.
and pull-ups for about 5 years.
Only those.
Right. Actually, not only those, mostly squatting and snatching.
Only squats.
Right. How has your mindset shifted? Obviously, you've become more and more competitive. Very few people, I think, start CrossFit thinking, I want to win the CrossFit Games. But how has your mindset shifted from the beginning days, maybe the things that you valued, things you thought were important, the ways that you train, ways that you ate, all of those things shifted from then till now?
I think my biggest shift mentally has been from, like measuring my success by like how I do at competitions or like my times on workouts, like measuring my success from those things as opposed to measuring success kind of as a more dynamic topic or subject, like even this year in the open, I think I'm in like 60th place right now or something like that. I started out, that first workout wasn't great, so it was like 200 something place. So like the 2014 2015 me would have just like thrown my hands up and been like, I'm over it, like what's even the point now? Whereas 2019 me is like, okay, it's a challenge. Nothing ever really has been easy for me in this sport, so just kind of shifting the mindset from being, seeing struggles as something that like you just throw your hands up at, or you just blame, you blame like, oh, I was sick, or oh, like I'm too short to do well at 19.1, like
Right.
not just throwing your hands up and like making excuses, but just saying like, okay, this is how I did on this one. Did I do the best I could do? Yes. And then moving on to like whatever's next, whether it's during the open or the next competition or, whatever it is. And then actively doing things to get better. Like Wadapalooza, we had the handstand obstacles, which I'd never actually done before in a competition or been on that, like those dimensions of a handstand obstacle. And I didn't finish that workout, like didn't even come close to finishing that workout. So one of the perks of being a gym owner is, we get new equipment. So I went and bought a handstand obstacle while I was in Miami, and it was like waiting on my doorstep when I came back. So, not being defeated by the things that stand in your way, just kind of I don't know, using them as fuel to the fire.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a very big commonality between the high level competitors, obviously in CrossFit, probably in any sport, versus people who are more recreational or want to be to that level, is that the same exact thing could happen on the handstand course. And again, no one's like perfect. No one is just like, no one fails on a thing and be like, their immediate thought is like, oh, I'm just going to get better, right? You have a pout.
I was real pissed.
Right. Like, everyone has their kind of like
unhappy.
pity party and things like that. But as far as, maybe externalizing those things and having it drag on, most of the really good athletes that I know and or follow, I almost never see that. So the handstand thing, a different type of person could have said, well, of course A, B, and C people beat me. They did it at regionals last year. They have this equipment at their gym. I can't be expected to compete with them. Or 19.1 was insane. How many people were like, even some really good athletes would just be like, oh, well, like, there goes my open because I'm not 6'3". I can't do wall balls and rowing. And like, there is some truth to those things, right? Like having good equipment does help. Being tall does help rowing, whatever. But those things aren't changing, right? So your mindset of being defeated by that is 100% not going to help you. And I think that just the type of person that complains about being short or tall is the same person that complains about their equipment, is the same person that complains about, I have a job, that's why I'm not at the CrossFit Games, right? Anyone can find a reason why they're not there, right? So before we both rant on that, we probably should move on.
Yes, please.
So something kind of to mention the job part of things. So I think many competitive athletes, maybe the top 5-10 people at the games are mostly full-time. But even then, there's big sponsorship obligations. They're not just hanging out at home, 24/7, 365. So you do co-own a gym, not a CrossFit gym, just a gym that does exercise.
Right.
So, when did you actually start? I'm sure you kind of had blended into kind of owning it, but when did you actually officially start that?
Me and one of the previous owners bought out the other two owners in December of 2017. So a little over a year ago, a year and 3 months ago.
Cool.
I had been coaching here for 3-4 years leading up to that.
Right. So I think at first glance, and still, I mean, it helps in some aspects. Owning a gym, being at the gym all the time is convenient for training, right? But there are, I'm sure, some struggles with sort of balancing that. So what kind of struggles do you have as being, or maybe struggles you can see with owning a gym and or coaching at that gym and trying to train? And what are some, again, tips, advice that you may have for someone that's trying to combat those two things, training at a high level and also running their gym at a high level?
last couple years have moved from living 30 minutes away from the gym to living like 90 seconds away from the gym. So as far as like a time aspect, that has been super helpful, just in being able to get things done. And, if I need to run home and take a shower, run home and grab food or grab my dog, it's super close. So that's helped. As far as just day-to-day stuff at the gym, I'm kind of the catch-all person. So if someone has a question about their account or has a question about, training or classes, or if we have a new person come in, like I'm just the first person that they see. So having to put my like training and my needs like behind those of our members and potential members, that's always a little bit of a struggle, just because you get focused in on a workout and then someone walks in the door and wants to talk about like how they haven't worked out in 10 years and they're ready to start their membership. Like that's just part of being a gym owner. And our members are actually amazing, and I like couldn't ask for a better group of people to be around, in that like they know how important it is to me, and they'll
Right.
they respect for the most part the boundaries that are necessary as a gym owner, to function as an athlete within their own gym. But so, making sure that the people in your gym understand what is important to you and like what you need to do to get to where you are. I think like 100% of our members are like that, as far as our gym goes. And just like when the time comes, being able to kind of tune out the noise, and focus on your own workouts and on your own stuff. I do a lot of like homework at the gym, as well. So being able to like close the door and know that people will respect your time. It's just kind of like an atmosphere that you have to put in place. And on the flip side, making sure that people know that you care about them, that like if they do need you and you're not in the middle of a Metcon,
Right.
that like you're going to be there and you're as equally as supportive of them as they are to you. So be good to your members, and they'll be good to you too, I think, is the main piece of advice I would give people who own gyms. Don't be selfish, and it's never going to come out the way that you want it to.
Yeah, I would think that that transparency probably does go a long way. If you obviously
Mm-hmm.
you own the gym, so a lot of it's your members, but also if you're a coach at the gym, really trying to be at that high level, explain that to whoever your higher up is,
Mm-hmm.
and you're probably
Yeah.
not going to be getting so much of the attention from the actual members stopping you working out. But
Right.
if you're trying to train and the owner of the gym is like, hey, can I get help with this? Like, let them know that, be like, hey, I want from 1 to 2:30 every day to just train, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure also, like, and again, in my mind, like being mentally tough, for lack of a better word, is
Mm-hmm.
probably good,
Right.
because there probably are going to be times you have to like stop in the middle of something to go do
Yep.
some work and then come back to it, and need to be like, a little bit compartmentalized of that, right? Like
Yeah.
if you could have just like started an EMOM, lost a member, come back to finish the EMOM.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you have to really be able to stay focused in not some great of circumstances. So I think
Yep.
that's some good info. So if you've listened to episode 1 with Paige and Andrea, we kind of discussed some recovery modalities, all the fancy stuff people like to talk about, like the power dots and Normatec boots and things that I mentioned about the cupping, dry needling, all of that stuff. There's dozens of things you can do. I think Katie and I are in agreement. Probably a lot of people are in agreement that the cheapest and also best form of recovery is sleep, right? I just mentioned before we got officially on air here that I got like 9.5 hours of sleep yesterday. I'm trying to recover from a little injury I've had, so I wanted to sleep a little bit more. And I was doing some like rowing, and I just felt like it was hard to hold my pace at a certain level because I was just wanting to go too fast, right? I felt so good just warming up today. So my question for you: what are some habits you have in place that kind of help you with getting your minimum amount of sleep, and also maybe ensuring you have good quality sleep throughout that time?
Yeah. I don't do, like, just to follow up, I don't do massages. I don't do like float tanks
Yeah,
and or like
fun
cupping.
stuff.
Like it's not that I don't want to, it's just like a time and money thing. So I agree that sleep is the best way to recover. that is cheap.
Right.
And also the easiest way to do that. I do, like I said, I have a chiropractor here, so he'll, I'll get adjusted and do some like grass tone and stuff sometimes, but it's not a regular thing that I do. But sleeping is something that I do try really hard to focus on. I'm like a 9 hour a nighter.
Yeah.
Like if I get under 9 hours, like I can tell I just don't feel quite as good as I do if I get more than 9. On average, I probably get more like 8 if we're being honest, but I can definitely tell a difference if I'm get a little less than that as opposed to more. So in order to get good sleep, I do a few things. I think I'm different than most people in that I like to eat dinner at like 8:30, 9 o'clock. It's just easier for me to go to sleep like if I have food in my belly, and it always has been. I mean, I remember being like 6 years old and yelling at my mom that I needed a snack before I went to sleep.
Some things never change.
So she can confirm that. But yeah, I sleep better after I eat, and I've never noticed a difference in my body composition or anything. As long as my numbers for the day are accurate in what I should be hitting, then it doesn't affect me there. I do take melatonin most nights. But the trick with that is that you have to like be ready to go to sleep when you take it.
Right.
You have to take it, and all your lights have to be off, and you have to be off your phone for it to actually work. So I know a lot of people who take it and they're like, it doesn't work for me. Like, well, it has to be dark and you have to be relaxed for it to work. So when I do that, it does work.
Yeah.
And then to build on that, like having no light in my room at all. I actually just got a new king size bed. So I took down my curtain because it was like in the way. So I have light in my room right now, and I haven't been sleeping as well. So it really does make a big difference. Like not being able to see your hand in front of your face type of light blockage is what I shoot for. And I always sleep better like that. One thing that's kind of like, I think unique to my situation, but something that people don't think about is I like to end conversations before I go to bed. So if I have like unread messages or basically just like problems that I like know might possibly keep me up, or I'm bad about like waking up in the middle of the night and being up for X amount of time thinking about these things that like I either need to get done or things I need to say to people. I always try to end all my conversations like within 30 minutes before I'm like ready to start relaxing. Even if it's like 9:30 at night and a member texts me about something, like just a quick response like, hey, I'll get to it in the morning. Like that helps me sleep better, knowing that I don't have these things kind of hanging over my head that I have to get to. The last thing I do is most nights I watch like 20 minutes of like a baking show or like a cooking show just to kind of like turn my mind off. Or I read too pretty frequently, but sometimes I'll watch TV and then read for a little bit just because it kind of helps turn my brain off and not be thinking about, the stuff from the day that everyone worries about when they go to sleep. And I love to cook and I love to bake, so I learn things from these shows.
That's a fun ritual. I don't think I've ever heard anyone specifically watching cooking, baking stuff before they go to bed. That's funny.
Like, watch Guy Fieri before you go to bed, and I promise you'll sleep better.
That's good. It's good that you would do the routine of like eat a big meal, then watch that, as opposed to the opposite way around.
Food just apparently relaxes.
That's true. Yeah, that's very funny. I do think the food thing is, I don't want to say counterintuitive to some people, but I think if you ask most of them, they would say, I want to go to bed on more of an empty stomach. But I'm a little bit in favor of what you mentioned too with you don't have to really gorge yourself, but I do think for most people, just think about it, like a lot of people will just anecdotally say like, I ate a big meal and I got sleepy, like people say that all the time. And there's actually some decent research on like having a high glycemic carbohydrate before you go to bed, improving like your sleep quality. I think it was specifically on the time you would fall asleep, right? I'm not really advocating people have to structure their day with having a high glycemic carb like rice before, but I think if you're someone that struggles with sleep, having your dinner or having a snack close to bedtime, at least something to play around with. All the other things you mentioned are fairly standard things about like a cool room, dark, turning your mind off. I do agree with you as well that probably reading is the best thing to do because you don't really have light, but also reading doesn't really help a lot. At least for me, it doesn't help a lot. If I'm feeling kind of anxious and thinking about things, and I start to open up a book, I really can't turn that off. I pretty much look at words and like think of what I'm thinking about, right?
Yeah.
But if I watch like Parks and Rec and it's like this dumb humor, and that kind of like helps me switch into that. So if I could like prescribe my perfect routine, it would be like 10 to 15 minutes of stretching while I'm watching some Parks and Rec, some junk show, and then like 10 to 20 minutes of reading, right? Just for it's easier for me to turn my brain off that way. Some days I can just read for a long time, but again, just because there's a little bit of light in a TV show, don't be afraid of like helping. I think it'll for most people it's still a net positive if you're feeling kind of anxious to have a little bit of light. I think the phone thing is probably a more common issue for our generation of people like Instagramming and not just the light but also the emotion of it. You know, it's like oh, my friend got engaged, or like oh, this person hit a PR or whatever. Like there's so much of that tied into it. So I think that can be a bigger issue for people than just the actual like light on their face. So
I agree.
Cool.
And I'm not perfect either.
Right.
There are definitely nights where I'm like Instagramming until 11:30 and I'm like, dang it, I need to go to sleep.
For sure,
But if you can, do your best most nights to keep to the same routine, then I think that we're all fine.
Yes, I think that's just like you have macro goals every single day. Like you don't hit those every single day, right? Like there's days where you go have what's that, Culver's stuff, whatever.
Yes,
and you have some cheese sticks and you don't count them. Like, but you're talking about cultivating habits. These are things that we all attempt to do more often than we don't, and we notice a difference probably when we do them versus when we don't. Last few things here. So this is actually an interesting question. I think it's probably unique for everybody. What type of, and probably cool for you because you own the gym, so I'm sure you're in charge of this most of the time. Maybe not.
That's debatable.
But what kind of music do you listen to? I'm sure it varies a little bit while you train.
It's quite eclectic. It jumps back and forth between like country, a lot of 90s hip hop. The one thing that I like will turn off every time it comes on, no matter what my workout is Eminem. Like I just can't listen. Okay. I don't know why. Like it's like too angry or something. I don't know. I just can't. Like it just you get that like annoying feeling in your belly, when you hear music that you don't want to listen to. So if I'm in control of the radio, there will not be any Eminem on. Surprisingly, I don't always get to listen to what I want to listen to because I do work out like at the same time as other people, even if we're not doing the same thing. And I don't really care that much about the music that's on. Like I don't want to work out in silence, but I'm not super picky about it. So I generally will let someone else. But like my co-owner, like he loves the Doors. So like in the last 5 years, I've become a Doors fan because like cool. It's just always on. Eazy-E is on when I am alone, but it's a little inappropriate. As far as the entire gym goes, we have a lot of like moms and grandmas here. Yeah. Who I don't know if they want to listen to Eazy-E.
They might be closet fans.
I have I told you at HOA, like in the starting corral, I like went up to the DJ and was like, "Hey, will you play some Eazy-E for this next workout?"
You crushed.
Yeah, it came on and I went faster. So
is that the burpee workout?
No, it's a dumbbell snatch one. The one where it was like synchro dumbbell snatches and toes to bar.
Yeah.
It was that one, which I had to keep up. I had to keep up with Shane McBride anyway, so I couldn't really slow down. But
yeah, there definitely are those artists or songs that just kind of give you a really good euphoric feeling. I'm similar to you in that maybe I'm just more of a diva, but like I have. Not that again, much like you, I don't really care that much, but if I could like choose when I'm doing like skill or like intentionally lower intensity things, I like to actually have like a slower pace thing going. Right. I just don't want to like, the weird thing for me is like doing an EMOM and there's just like this EDM like and I'm just
so
like,
loud.
I'm just like I'm just kind of like I almost feel lazy when I'm doing it because I feel like I should be like moving faster, right? But then like when it's 12-minute AMRAP important time, I'm much like I just kind of want some like hardcore gross rap going.
Right.
is
I don't
usually.
do a lot of aside from like 90s, like Easy and Dr. Dre, like I don't do a lot of rap. Drake sometimes, but I don't know. I like to work out when I'm happy. I've always,
Yeah,
like, I'm not one of those people who like gets really angry and like can PR lift because you're so angry or
yeah.
like get mad and do better. Like 19.2, I like made a playlist for that. And the first song was Christina Aguilera, Come On Over Baby. And I just like cranked it and like started
Doing
my
toes to the
toes to
bar,
bar. Like,
yeah. That's funny.
I don't know. I work out to happy music better than I do,
Yeah.
anything else.
I kind of agree with you too on the not just minimum specifics, but anything to me that's like overly inspirational or
Yeah.
motivational actually gives me the opposite
Yeah,
direction.
like please stop. I don't need this right
Yes,
now.
like what's the Eminem song? Uh, the like spaghetti song.
The mom spaghetti
Yeah,
song,
like
yes.
lose yourself in the moment. Like if I'm getting ready to do an important workout and I hear that, I'm like, this is too much like a movie. I need to like just something different to go on. So I definitely agree with just like there's a limit to how cheesy and like you know a song can be. So last question I have down here. So I'm sure owning the gym, being in school, competing in CrossFit, you have tons of free time, right?
So
But
much.
so how do you sort of wind down outside of the gym? I think again, a lot of competitors, it's very easy to get caught up in like maybe what other people are doing or um, maybe the holes that you see in like my nutrition or my training or whatever. So what are some things you kind of do to just to chill out outside of the gym so you can maybe focus on being an athlete in there and being a normal person outside of the gym? Any just like things you're watching, books you're reading, other hobbies you have, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to not take your work home when you are an athlete and also own the gym. So it's hard. Like, I'll find myself like hanging out with my boyfriend with like my computer out, like furiously typing away,
Right.
an assignment or like someone's account or an email or something. So it's really hard to turn it off. But if I'm not around like electronics, it's a lot easier. Um, like I tried rock climbing not that long ago, which was super fun. And if it didn't like completely tear apart my hands and forearms and everything, like I'd like to do it more often, maybe more in like the off season.
Right.
But even my stuff that's like outside of normal gym stuff is still like involved with the gym. Like we have a book club.
Right.
We like, I'll like my best friends are also members here. So we try to like go out to eat as like a group of girls, at least once a month or once every couple months. A couple of my friends from high school live like close to this area too, so we try to get together sometimes too. I'm actually currently planning my 10-year high school reunion,
Ooh,
so
big deal.
that's super exciting. Yeah, and like I said, I just watch like a little bit of TV before I go to bed. Currently watching Mad Men before bed is a really bad choice, so
You
I
just keep
don't
going.
recommend doing that because it's like causes a lot of anxiety, and I've been having bad dreams. If anyone's watched Mad Men, it's very like dramatic, so not recommending that. Stick to like the baking shows and
Baking and Parks and Rec. Baking is funny.
bake baking in Parks and Rec. But other than that, I have a nephew who's almost 2. He lives about 2 hours away, so I go up and try to see him and my sister and brother-in-law every once in a while. But other than that, just day to day, eat sushi every couple weeks with my friends and try to be as chill as possible outside of the gym.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's important. I don't want to say it's obvious, but I think a lot of people that just look at top athletes in other sports, especially in CrossFit, because it's a little bit you seem closer to these people than you actually are because you can like
Right.
go to Wadapalooza and like touch Rich Froning, right, or be in the heat
Yeah.
before him.
Right.
But a lot of people have the idea that these people like yourself literally just like wake up, have your oatmeal, go to the gym, row, come back, take a nap, go home, snatch. And like that's what your every single
Uh,
moment is around. And the truth is like you probably spend an hour or two more in the gym than most people. You're probably just
mhm.
more focused in your time there. You are more diligent about your movement and things like that. You eat better.
Mhm.
But from 7 to 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night, you're probably not doing anything different than everybody else, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important as an aspiring competitor, maybe you don't have to be
Yeah.
like a hermit, right? Like maybe you don't
No.
go out and get drunk on a Tuesday, right? But it doesn't help to,
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't hurt you to go like have a social life or to just do normal activities. You probably would be surprised how much people like yourselves and Frazier and Tia, whatever, how normal they are outside of just
Yeah.
being on the competition floor, you know? So,
Yeah. I mean, I think deep down, all of us kind of perfect. We're like 80 years old on the inside, and that like we like to go to bed at like 9 p.m. and like we don't want to go out and drink on a random, Thursday night. So there are parts of it that feel like you're kind of forcing yourself to stay away from those things, but at the same time, like I don't know, I don't want to go out and drink. Like I just want to hang out with my friends and eat sushi. So I think that that's kind of something that elite athletes all have in common, is that like your wants and needs reflect like your goals without even really thinking about it. So we're all normal in that, like we go out to eat, we like there are days when I eat Culver's and I don't track my macros. There are days when I like decide it's probably a better idea to like go for a walk than do my 20-minute metcon. Like I don't know, we're average people. It's just our goals are a little bit different than the average person.
yeah, that's really something that I noticed about yourself too, is that not to put anybody else on blast, but more of my intermediate athletes are the people that won't do that. That like won't go somewhere and not track their macros.
Yeah.
And that won't not do their 20-minute AMRAP if it's written down for them.
Yeah.
And some of the top end athletes that I work with, they are more okay with that. Of like, you know what, Greg, I didn't feel like tracking today, so I didn't deal with it. Or like, you know what, like my shoulder just hurt, so I did this exercise, not that exercise. It's actually, you guys are still hyper focused on what you're doing,
right?
But you're not blind to other things.
I do have to say that I feel like that is something that you kind of earn as an elite athlete, because for years I was that person that was like a little bit less with my nutrition, but as far as like working out goes, like I remember leaving on, it was either like Thanksgiving or Christmas Day one time, because it was like the workout was written, like I had to go do it. Yeah. And my family was like, why are you leaving to go work out in an empty gym, like by yourself right now on this family holiday? And I'm like, I have to do it. So we've all been there. I think even the elite people who now are like a little bit smarter with it, we've all been there. And I think now I just realize like the risk to reward of being that person, like it's just not worth it. Like in the end, you're just going to burn out faster because you are so hyper focused on this thing. Like you have to let yourself live a little. The people that are super hyper focused, I think, are the ones who have like one or two super successful seasons and then are just like in any sport and then are just like done, because they just can't live up to that standard and they can't keep those, they can't keep that same lifestyle long term.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So that was good information, guys. Again, this was Katie Trombetta, and thank you guys for listening to episode 2.
Thanks.